Sorry. We're calling the House Appropriations Committee on Transportation and Public Safety into session here. We're going to start with HB 172. I'm going to take Chairman's prerogative and talk about my bill, Virginia State Police Electronic Summons System Fund. And the reason I'm doing that is because Wayne is here, Mr. Huggins is here only for a short period of time, and I thought I would let him address the committee on the bill. And we'll try to fly through these things, okay?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 172 is a bill that would extend the electronic summons program statewide for the Department of State Police. And just a little history, the Department of State Police created this program. And yet, up until 2 years ago, we were the only police department in Virginia not allowed to use the program that we created. Chairman Krizik, 2 years ago, through the Appropriations Act, was able to get a pilot program in our 7th Division, which is Fairfax, started, and we've been conducting that pilot for the last year. The results have been amazing. The significant part you need to know about this bill is this tremendously enhances trooper safety. Stopping vehicles on the interstates is one of the most dangerous things that we do. My own shift partner was hit by a tractor trailer in 1974 and killed. And what we have found through the pilot is it reduces the amount of time of a traffic stop from approximately 18 minutes to 6 minutes. In other words, by 60%. In my own case, and I'll use myself as an example, I issued approximately 1,000 summonses a year when I was a trooper. If you just say 15 minutes per ticket, that would be 15,000 minutes I sat on the shoulders of 95, 495, and 66 when I was a trooper. A 60% reduction means I would have gone from 15,000 down to about 5,000, or 250 hours down to about 100 hours. Is a significant savings in time and exposure, not just for us, but for the citizens that we've pulled over, for the citizens in the crashes that we're investigating, for the citizens in disabled motorists. It speeds everything up. And the last thing I'll say about it, it had a force multiplying effect. And with 263 vacancies currently, this becomes a huge issue. It had a force multiplying effect of adding 11 new trooper positions to our 7th Division alone. So all we're asking you to do is to allow us to do what you are already allowing every other police department in the state of Virginia to do. And Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your leadership on this matter.
Thank you, Wayne. Are there any questions for either me or do you want to take over the gavel while I'm doing it too? All right. We got a question from Delegate Knight.
Wayne, we've seen this before. I remember we'd seen it before.
Yes.
Why haven't we passed it before now? What was the other side say they didn't? Why did they say they didn't like it?
That's what led ultimately to the pilot that Delegate Krizik caused. The reason they didn't go straight is they wanted to fund it out of general funds. That's not how the program is funded for every other law enforcement agency. It's funded by a $5 fee that's assessed to the violators upon conviction. That's what underwrites the cost of this program rather than a general fund.
Yeah, just to be clear, that's exactly correct. So there was a concern about adding more fees to the cost of the ticket, but really for $5, and you're saving lives, and you're saving state troopers' lives, and you're saving people's lives that are being pulled over as well. And you got to remember, you're talking about at nighttime, in bad rainy conditions, and we're talking about on interstates. It's high time that this needs to happen now, and more so to the point is this study that we did because of the pilot has really cemented my position on this because it showed everything that you just said is accurate, and it's time to do this. I hope everybody will support it. Yes. All right. Do we have anybody in opposition? Anybody? Okay. Let's. I'm looking. I have a motion to report. Do I have a second? All right, the clerk will. Thank you. The clerk will close the roll. It's 5-0 to report to the full committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Fowler, don't go too far. You're up. HB 157.
Let me find the appropriate chair thing here, Mr. Chairman. All right, now first, I've got the budget amendment in, Mr. Chairman, here on 157. This was y'all remember the move over law last year. We kind of kept going back and forth between the House and the Senate position. The House wanted to include the towing and recovery people. The Senate didn't. The governor put in an amendment, and Senate rejected it. So anyway, they're out of it. So again, I decided I would try to get them back into the statute this year. And of course, I got the since they couldn't determine an actual cost, they give you the $50,000 marker, and that's where we are. So I don't know to what extent you want to discuss the underlying policy, but
Do we have any questions for the patron?
Mr. Chairman, we've seen this bill before. We moved it out of the House last year. I'd make a motion to report.
Okay, we have a motion to report. Do we have a second? All those, the clerk will open the roll. Clerk will close the roll. It's 5-0. Thank you very much.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the committee. Right now, you're number one on my favorite committee in the House. So thank you.
We'll try to keep it that way. Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Carol Foy's bill, HB 366. We've got Ms. Jankowski here, Delegate Foy couldn't make it. She's in another committee. Would you like to come and just explain the bill a little bit for us? Thank you.
Happy to. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Maria Jankowski. I'm the Deputy Director for the Virginia Indigent Defense Commission. This bill establishes a public defender office in Prince William County and the city of Manassas in Manassas Park, I believe. And we are able to do this. I can answer any questions anyone has. I can tell you that we were approached by the local community and various advocacy groups back in the summer about the feasibility of this. I can answer any questions anyone has about the benefits of a public defender's office. I can tell you we have extraordinary training. Our offices are staffed with investigators and mitigation specialists that can look to our clients, the depth and the breadth of their needs. Certainly, I'm quite biased in favor of public defenders.
Would you be doing landlord-tenant work too there?
We administer about 33 commercial leases. So we have in our admin office, the first step would be to put out an RFP in the area to find basically the office space. And we're actually in communication already with DGS because we work with DGS and we have a relationship with them to help us administer all of our commercial leases. But we do everything.
This would be an office for 35 positions. How many of them would be lawyers?
24 is what we've
Okay.
kind of
and the
riddled
last
through.
time, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time we opened up a new public defender's office was in 2005?
05.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Do we have a motion?
It says Prince William down here, so I'll make a motion.
Second.
His region's growing. we may have a future governor attempt here. All right, we have a motion. We have and a second. Please open the. The clerk will close the roll. It's 5-0 to report. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Jankowski. Appreciate it. Delegate Batten, your bill HB 988.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My House Bill 988 allows grandchildren of the victims of a crime to be eligible to apply for benefits from the Virginia Victims Fund. At this time, a surviving spouse, parent, grandparent, or sibling can apply for those benefits, but a grandchild is unable to. This matter was brought to my attention by Mr. Chris Tan, who is here with me today. He is with Catholic Charities of Eastern Virginia, and he worked to assist some of the victims of the Virginia Beach shooting. At that time, it came to his attention that grandchildren were not able to apply for those benefits. Typically, those benefits would include counseling. And at a time where more and more grandparents are providing childcare for grandchildren, the loss of one of those grandparents would certainly have an impact on the grandchild and may necessitate counseling. So I do have with me Mr. Tan here today. I also have, I am aware that Kay is here in the back, and she is with the Criminal Injuries Compensation Fund, which administers this as part of the Workers' Compensation Fund. So happy to answer any questions or refer to the other two individuals.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Knight. Oh, Delegate Aird.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Chairman. I just wanted to get clarification on how this system works because I'm not as familiar. Can you share with me if a grandchild is eligible, well, if we make a grandchild eligible, is that because there are no other surviving family members that would also qualify for these funds, or is this in addition to?
This would be in addition to, and there is discretion as far as the application process goes, is my understanding. So this would, the hope would be that this would be a grandchild who'd been adversely impacted by the death of a close grandparent. It would not preclude someone else in the family from also applying for those funds.
And, Mr. Chairman, follow-up question?
Yes, delegates.
And for further clarity, so would they be sharing a fixed amount of money? So would the amount that a survivor, a primary, like per se, a spouse receive, would the grandchild be splitting that money with them, or is that separate pots? How does that work?
I think it's discretionary. It's not like it all gets carved up. I think I will refer to Ms. Bullock if she can answer that question, just so I don't give incorrect information.
Thank you. And you had somebody else here from
Yes,
Catholic
Mr.
Charities?
Tan is here with Catholic
Yeah,
Charities
come on
as
up
well.
and get ready to testify in support of this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kay Bullock. I'm the director of the Virginia Victims Fund. And the answer to that question is no. The cost for a child or grandchild would be limited to grief counseling, mileage, possibly funeral expenses. And those expenses would be based upon the person who has actually filed the claim. If they are included in the claim with additional children, then it would be shared. But they would be able to be allowed for those expenses at the max.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate. Do we have any other questions? Let's hear, do you have anything else that you want to add? Okay, let's hear, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
State your name, please.
My name is Christopher Tan. I'm the CEO of Catholic Charities of Eastern Virginia, and thank you for your time. This was brought to our attention, as the delegate said, with our work with victims of the municipal center shooting, and it just seemed like an oversight on our part as a state, and so we were in support of it. I think as your questions and as your answers, this is not a cash award in that sense, so this is literally funding specific to issues that we saw. So there were several victims whose grandchildren were very close to them, and we also know that about 20% of the grandparents in some of our urban cities in Hampton Roads are directly responsible for their grandchildren's care, maybe not their guardian, but directly responsible for their day-to-day care. And so I think it's just an opportunity for those grandchildren to receive grief counseling and the type of counseling services that may be needed if their loved one was unfortunately tragically killed and a victim of a crime. So we are definitely in support of it, and thank Delegate Batten for thinking of us and thinking of the grandchildren. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Delegate Knight?
Appreciate you finding that oversight and bringing it, Delegate, because I live right down there. You know, I'm just a few miles from there. And anyways, without going into any details, I am aware how traumatic it was for some of the children and grandchildren and everything. So appreciate you bringing that bill, because I know exactly what's going on right there in my community. And Mr. Chairman, if you'd recognize me again, I'd like to make a motion.
Before we do that, do we have any other further questions, any further? would you like to make a final comment, Delegate?
I don't have any final comments.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any other questions, though.
All right, we have a motion to report. Do we have a second? All those, the clerk will open up the rolls. Thank you. Five to zero. Thank you. It's going to the full committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. Good job. All right, Delegate Hope is on his way, but in the interest of time, council's going to read the bill description.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 498 from Delegate Hope, having to do with the Hope Card program. What the bill would do is establish the Hope Card program as a...
Hold on, Council. We're going to amend that before Delegate Hope gets here, and we're going to call it the Kwezak Card program.
Okay. Again, Mr. Chairman, that would require the issuance of a Hope Card to any individual who has been issued a permanent protective order in any general district, JDR, or circuit court in Virginia. And the Hope Card itself is a durable sort of license-sized card that contains essential information about that individual's protective order. Currently, the Office of the Executive Secretary is operating the Hope Card program on a pilot basis in select JDR courts. And as I said earlier, this bill would expand it statewide. There is an estimated fiscal impact of $81,520 general fund each year. Just under $70,000 of that would be used to hire a full-time Hope Card administrator. And $12,000 would be for administrative and other costs related to the program.
I'm trying to see if I can't get Delegate Hope up here. He had, yes, please. The clerk can text him. He's up in another committee with a bill. So, do we have any questions?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Delegate Tom. Or Delegate Ayer, I'm sorry.
And I promise this is not ill-intended. So I'm trying to understand the necessity for the wallet-sized card. Is it that there are circumstances where someone is required to prove that they are an individual who's under a protective order? I'm trying to better understand the necessity for this.
Yeah, that's a good question, and the patron's not here. Do we have any answers?
And just as a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman, the amount, the $81,520 from the general fund. So this is in perpetuity, the amount we can expect to have to dish out for this program.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious about the necessity.
It seems to me, it seems to me quite a lot of money. I mean, I don't think one full-time person is necessary to issue these Hope Cards. But I don't know. I mean, we don't know how many people we're talking about. But in my office, I would get interns to do this kind of thing. But but I hate to do anything without Delegate being here to present. What's the pleasure of the committee? We could just be at ease for a couple minutes or pass it by?
Yes, we can pass
All
it
right. Okay, why don't we pass it by temporarily, and we'll give him a couple minutes, and if he doesn't respond, then we'll pass it by until next week. Is that okay? Okay, hold on, here he comes. Just about to pass by your bill. We're going to kill it. No, so you have You have the microphone there. You have the floor.
Yes.
Delegate Hope, thank you. 498, HB
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you waiting for me. This bill expands the Hope Card program to any person who's been issued a protective order. And this was brought to me by a constituent of mine that some jurisdictions are issuing this wallet-sized card. They're laminated credit card sizes that confirm the details of a protective order, and they're very convenient for someone who needs to carry this information and provide it. And
Delegate, we've already had a discussion about this, and I hate, but you weren't here, of course. But well, let me stop you right there, because one of the first questions was, why does somebody need to have that card?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Air.
And Delegate Hope, I'm just trying to better understand, are there circumstances in which someone is required to sort of produce this proof on the spot?
That's correct.
Yeah, can you explain why that would be necessary?
I don't know if there's anyone here from the Office of Executive Secretary who could explain it.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Delegate.
if I might, just as a follow-up as she's approaching, the jurisdictions that are running the pilot program, how are they currently funding? That was through us? We funded the pilot?
Mr. Chairman, Christy Wright, Office of the Executive Secretary. This is currently, it began in Pulaski County, and it is grant funded. That's how it is currently being done. Right now, it's only in J&DR courts. We are not, be clear, we are not looking to expand it. Delegate Hope approached us and wanted to know information. There's a part-time person who spends part of her time, it's about $20,000. From that includes her time to do it, as well as some of the related expenses. There's like a laminating machine. It is something that would be done internally within OES and then sent out. It's not like each locality would have to have the equipment or anything. It has been voluntary in the J&DR courts at this time. This would expand it statewide, so it would be in every J&DR court, general district, and circuit court. There are about 8,000 full, we call them permanent, but they're up to 2-year protective orders issued each year. So that is your potential volume that could be if people wanted those. Our understanding is that it is not that everyone would have to have one, but that if someone would want them upon request, which is how it is now, the individual could have one issued.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up question?
Delegate.
And I'm sorry, can you circle back to a circumstance in which someone would be required to sort of produce this on the spot? What type of situations require someone to have this as a wallet-size card? Well,
I think the idea is, so, when the order is issued, it's paper. And if someone has this for 2 years, if they're trying to carry that around, the wallet size is handy if, you carry your ID and a credit card in the back of your phone, one of those little things that can easily fit there. So if you were calling in, there's a violation of the protective order, the respondent is where he or she should not be, or you can present it to law enforcement. I do have this protective order. It just provides that handy. It has the name of the respondent, it has the protected persons, and as much of the conditions of the protective order as can fit on that card.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Delegate. I would note that we're talking about 8,000 cards, and the budget amendment is for 81,000. It's about $10 a card. That's cheaper than a DMV. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's very convenient, and what was mentioned earlier is that this is just happening in certain JDR courts, and if that protective order is appealed to circuit court, then they're not issued. And so this not only would this apply to all courts in which there's a protective order issued, but it would apply to the entire Commonwealth. And the 81,000 would go towards the staff position at the Office of the Secretary to afford doing it. It's very convenient. It's widely popular with people that use the cards.
Sorry, Delegate. Any other questions for the delegate? I have one last one. I would note that, Ms. Wright, you mentioned that you guys had not brought this forward to the delegate. Are you supportive of it?
We have no position. We will be happy to implement it as necessary. I think the position of the courts is we continue to, our priority are district court clerk positions.
So that's
Which I
where,
also
So this-
support.
which that's where we, if you're,
This
if
would
you're
come below
deciding,
that,
those
okay.
are the ones that we need. We need those district court clerk positions, so.
All right, thank you
Mr.
very much.
Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Air.
So then, having said that, for this person who will be producing these cars at $69,511, I presume that they will have additional duties, or?
I mean, I think that as necessary, that right now the person is, like I said, is part-time, budgeted in the, it's the VSTOP funding is $20,800. Some of her time is spent also on some other domestic violence-related things. I think that that portion of the grant funding that would be replaced with this funding would probably be used for judicial education and training and that sort of thing. They do. Right now, some of that VSTOP funding also goes for local training. We send judges to national training events and that sort of thing on domestic violence. So that money could be used elsewhere as well.
Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion? Delegate, last word?
No, I appreciate the subcommittees.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Tickles.
I think has a good idea here, but I would like to consider this in terms of the entire package out of this subcommittee. So I would move to temporarily lay this on the table and consider it as we go forward the next couple of weeks to bring it back off the table if we can find the money. And the delegate might know, the Secretary mentioned it, but we are going to try to do more than we have a terrible problem with the clerk staff in the district courts right now, and only funded half of their requests, and it's a desperate situation. So that is one of the things we have to weigh against everything we're doing here. So I would just gently lay it on the table to come back and see if we can do it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. This is, any further debate? Okay, the clerk will open the roll. All right, 6-0 to lay it on the table, but we'll try to resurrect this one.
Thank you.
All right,
Mr.
thank
Chairman.
you,
Appreciate
Delegate.
it. Thank you all.
All right, our final bill, Delegate Watts. It's the Washington, HB 1586. I think I saw her. There she is, sorry.
Yes, there I am. Okay. Thank you very much. Excuse me, I don't have the bill in front of me, but I know what it says, so here we go. HB, whatever the number is makes two clarifications in the restrictions that were put on WMATA as far as conforming to continued support through the Commonwealth of Virginia. The first one, the language read in the agreement that it would be a 3% increase in Virginia's budget. Well, the budget is so integrated that the striking of Virginia allows WMATA to administer this appropriately without having to do the impossible thing of disaggregating every cost.
Delegate Watts, I'm sorry. We have a line amendment. It's a really easy one on line 74 at J. Yeah, it says in any year that the total Virginia
is
operating assistance. So we've taken out Virginia.
And that is the first change, and then the second change.
So hold on. So we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
Okay.
The line amendment passed. Go ahead.
I'm
Thank
working
you.
from the bill rather than the budget language, sorry. Then the next change is to add at the end of that paragraph the language and for little I, any service increase is approved by the WMATA board. It was never intended that this 3% cap would be placed on expansion of service. So it's expansion of service, which obviously takes whatever cost factors both in capital and in staffing. And it says that the 3% cap is on the ongoing budget, not additional service.
All right. Delegate, we've actually made a little mistake here. So the line amendment's to unstrike Virginia.
Yep.
So that's what it does. Okay. So that's everybody clear about that? Okay. So that's what we passed. All right. So do we have any questions for the patron?
And again, the last one adds the language so that if you open the silver line, you wouldn't regard that as part of the percentage of increase in the budget.
I understand it. So what this does this provides flexibility to the jurisdictions in the event that they want to fund increased service, such as additional eight-car trains, or more frequent rail service, or additional bus service. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Any other further questions? There's no fiscal impact. Am I wrong about that?
That would be correct from my understanding. It's just clarification.
There's no attached fiscal impact statement. Obviously, any impact is contingent on actions going forward. I mean, there's no predictable, there would be no adjustment to our budget this year related to this legislation.
Yeah, self-contained impacts. Okay. Do we have any further questions for the patron? Any last words? Okay. Do we operate on a motion? Do we have a motion to? Move to report. All right, we have a motion to report, and second. Clerk, open the roll. Thank you. The clerk closed the roll. The reports with amendment 6-0. Thank you,
Thank you
delegate.
so much for.
Thank you. Thanks for your hard work on that. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.